So this video is going to show you step by step as to how to make your graph. It's a 3-axis graph for our Yellowstone wolves project. So the first thing we want to do is we are starting on our Google document that you guys made a copy of last week. So it looks a little bit like this. And we are going all the way down to part 2 because that is where this data set is. So you're all the way down to part 2. So you are going to graph the provided data set. Be sure that it includes labels, title, etc. So you want to make sure that you have a Google Doc or Google Sheets open as well, because we want to make this graph in Google Sheets. So the first step of what you're going to do is you are not going to type this data in individually. You are going to copy this data. So to do that, you're going to right click and hold, and then highlight all of this data here. You're going to press Control C to copy, or right click and copy. Great. You're going to copy that. Then you're going to go over to this slide over here in your Google Sheets, and you are going to paste this. So you're going to press Control V, or you're going to right click and press paste. So you have all of this information here, everything you need for your graph. So we need to have 2 y-axes and 1 x-axis. I can talk. So we need to have the total number of wolves and elk. We actually do not care about one thing for this data set. So we don't care about the number of packs. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to delete this column. And to delete this column, you're going to click on the column letter at the very top. And you're going to right click. You have to make sure you do it from the very top. And you're going to delete the column. So press delete column. Fantastic. So you should have deleted that column. So now you should be left with year, number of wolves, and elk. Okay? So now you're going to turn this into a graph. So we can make this my whole screen now. So you have your data in here, and you're going to turn this into a graph. And to do this, you want to highlight the information that you are working with. So we are working with column A, B, and C. So you're going to click on column A at the top. You're going to press Shift, and then also click on B and C. So that should have highlighted all of this data. Great. So now we want to insert our graph. So you go to Insert at the top of the screen. And then it is not titled graph, it's actually titled chart. So hit chart. So it's actually going to turn this into a chart for you. But there's one issue currently, and that is the fact that our chart only has one axis. It only has one y-axis. We said that we want this to be a 3-axis graph. So we want an x, a y, and then a y on this side. So to do this, you should have popped up with a little chart editor. If that chart editor did not pop up, click on your graph, click on these 3 little dots, and do Edit Chart. The setup is fine. It should be a line chart. Don't mess with any of this, but go to Customize. So to customize, you can customize a few different things: the style, the titles, the series, the legend, and then the 2 axes. So we want to edit the series because these are our series. We have number of wolves and total number of elk. That is our series of this graph. So you're going to click on series. And we don't want this information, what we do to our changes, we don't want that to edit both wolves and elk. We only want it to edit one of the 2. So what you do is where it says Apply to All Series, click that drop-down menu. And you want to pick if you want either your wolves or your elk on your right y-axis. So I'm going to pick my elk and put my elk on the right axis. So I click on elk. You can change the color if you want. If you want it to be green. Then I'm going to go down and click on axis. I don't want it on the left axis because that's where I want my wolves. I want it on my right axis. And as soon as you click that, it's going to separate them out. So now you have your 3-axis graph. We are not done yet. We want to be able to see where the data points are that we plotted. So if you highlight over it, you can see those little tiny circles. We want those to be highlighted. Same with here. So to do that, you go to Point Shape. When you click on Point Shape, you can pick any of these. Let's make for our elk, we want it to be stars. Great, so it's gonna add little stars for every point that you plotted data. Every point that you plotted data. Okay, but we also want that on our wolves too. So to do that, you go to Total Number of Elk, click on that series at the top, and go back to your wolves. Again, if you want to change the color, feel free. It's already on the left axis, great, but we want our point shape. Let's make our wolves triangles. So now we can see every data point that we plotted. So you guys can play around with this, and you guys can add even more details, and I'll kind of go over that at the end. But I am requiring that you do one other thing, actually two other things. First, your titles aren't great right now. They're not great titles. Total number of wolves and total number of elk. Where? Why do we care? So go back to Customize and click on Chart and Axis Titles. So chart title is going to be your first one. So your chart title right now is total number of wolves and elk. You want to change that to something that makes sense. So total number of wolves, total number of elk. So total number of wolves and elk in Yellowstone. That's a fine title. You can center that title if you want to make it in the middle. But okay, you have your title of your graph, but your axis over here, those guys don't have titles yet. So to get there, you do your drop-down menu, and you want to edit your vertical axis. So what is our vertical axis? It goes from 0 to 200. It's this side. It is our total number of wolves, or number of wolves. See how it added that title over there? If you want to get even more spiffy, I have my wolves in blue. I can change my title of my axis to blue so it matches. You can make it the same blue so it actually matches perfectly. So number of wolves is blue. That's that graph. Then we want to do our right, because we haven't actually labeled the right side yet. So right vertical axis. That is our total number of elk. You would type that in there. Well, that's also green. I want to change that to green. So total number of elk. Great. So this is the baseline. This is what I need from you. This is what I need you to submit. If you want to go a little bit more in depth, you can actually add some grid lines here. And this is going to give us some more data points that we can see. And because it goes from 1995 to 2004, we're missing 4 little grid lines. You can see there's the plot points there. But if we want to see the actual grid lines, you can do, I think it's minor count, and you want to do 4. And it'll add lines to each data point that you plotted. So you guys can mess around with this. You can make it even more, you can move around. Let's see, the legend, you can put it on the bottom instead of having it at the top. You can put it on the left, so it's now over there. I don't really like that as much because it makes your graph really small. You can make it maybe a little, there you go, you can spread it out. So now it's a little bit bigger. So this is what you're submitting to me. This is due today by the end of class. You will take a screenshot of this, just of your graph, just of that little area. Take a picture of that and then submit it to Schoology in the first draft of your wolves and elk and Yellowstone assignment.